Hello, guys. How is everyone? Can y'all hear me? Get a good sound check before we get too wrapped up into this. Hi, Brittany. Hi, TCA. Hey, Bitch Talks. Welcome, ladies. Welcome, everybody else that's watching. Can y'all hear me all right? Can y'all hear me all right? Okay, yeah, my phone is delayed. Okay, good. So, how is everyone doing this evening? Y'all having a good Saturday? I'm still trying to get used to this new computer, guys. So, even the sharing part for me is going to be a challenge because Mac is complicated. And I'm so out of habit. Hi, Carrie. Hi, Carolina. Welcome, everybody. Thanks, Britt. I have another one I made just for this series because I made one for when I'm going to do serial killers too, and I was trying to make one for this one. It's a little bit long. I'll play it here in a minute. It's a little bit long, so I'm going to have to edit it some more, but it's working. It's working. Oh, the state fair? Were you vending, TCA, or did you get to play? It's too hot here to go anywhere. Y'all, like, seriously. It was like 113 again today. I'm over it. Walking into this 103-degree hot tub. Girl, I'm over it. My husband is in Washington State right now, and he texts me at noon. He's like, here you go. And he sends me a picture, and it was 78 degrees. I told him that I no longer, what did I say? I didn't like him right now or something like that. I can't. It's like, oh, everything melts. Everything. I can't get anything home from the grocery store fast enough. And it's like I keep ice chest in the car. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Hi, Megan L. I missed that one. Welcome. Thank y'all for coming. I have not been live in a while, a couple weeks. And then it was just kind of a little, hey, how are you? Girl, it's still like 9 in the 90s. Hi, Brooke. I'm in Memphis, and there's been a heat advisory for weeks. Girl, I get a heat thing every day, multiple times a day. It is awful. Just awful here in Southeast Texas. Just, ugh. The humidity is like 98%. So, where did it go? But this new computer, I got a new computer a couple months ago. Month ago, I don't know when, but about 2 months. I think I got it in July, and I'm still trying to learn to use it. It's a Mac, and so it's way different than a regular computer, and learning curve, I guess. Yeah, I would just want cooler weather. It don't have to be fall. It don't have to be spring. It don't have to be winter. I just cooler weather. Cooler weather is all I want. So, alrighty. Well, I tell you what. Let's kind of jump in. Well, there you go. It's a little long. I hope y'all liked it. So hello to everybody that's been coming. Hi, Janessa, Mrs. O. Who else did I miss? There was another one. Where was it? Oh, Miss Dubai. Is it Dubai? Am I saying that right? I will butcher names. Hi, Brooke. I'm going to butcher names, and I'm sorry. I apologize in advance. Thank you, Carrie. This case is what turned me into true crime. I was a nursing student doing clinicals on mom and baby floor when she finally admitted to putting them in the lake. I'm from Greenville, only 30 miles away. Oh, the Susan Smith case. Yeah, I need to talk about that one. Susan Smith is the reason Darlie kind of got slammed, in my opinion. So there's going to be a lot of different opinions on this case. Whether you are convinced she's guilty, convinced she's innocent, I just ask to be respectful in the chat, and just let's respect everybody has the right to have a view and an opinion. No name calling. I mean, unless you want to call, we can call Letitia Stout names all day long, and Lori Vallow. I'm good with that. And this case here, the case of Darlie Routier, is hi Alexis Blackheart, my birthday twin. The letter W from the last name. Look, I'm reading chat and not even talking. Sorry. This case happened in June of 1996. My son, my baby, was born in July, so I was pregnant. My middle daughter was born in 92, and my youngest was in 89, but her birthday was June 4th. So when this case happened, it really hit me hard. And being that I'm in Texas, I'm in an area that's very conservative, very religious, so to speak. And I have been to the Kerrville area, which is where they had the trial at. And I will tell you, Kerrville is seriously conservative. Basically, if you aren't going to church every time the doors are open, you're going to hell. And Darlie had bleached hair. She had a boob job. She wore jewelry. She always had makeup on. She always had to do all these things. Hi, Elizabeth Lander, and everybody else coming in. If I've missed you, I am so sorry. Chat looks like it's flipping. And she was really judged on her appearance and on her having nice things. And they had a beautiful home. And I've got a video I'll pull up here in a second where we can go see the neighborhood and all of that. But she, just a small intro on the 6th of June 1996, a 911 call goes out, and I forgot to upload that video. I was going to upload that video and play it. I'll just go pull it up. I have it saved. Hi, Vanessa. And within 20 minutes of being on scene, law enforcement decided that Darlie did it. They never looked into anything else. They've not ever really, really pushed for any other theory other than Darlie did it. Medical professionals and law enforcement exaggerated things. They did lie about things. They left things out. There's just a lot with that happened, and we're going to get into that. So Darlie and Darin met when she was 16. He was 18. Imitate. What's that mean, Brittany? House me alone? Home alone? Home alone. Is that what you're saying? Home alone. I don't know. I don't know that I've ever heard that, but maybe. The new pictures of the home, of course, it's been redone, and it just sold a few months ago. This home is absolutely exquisite, and it was in 96. It was built in 93, and so they were only in the home 3 years when this incident happened. But they met when she was 16. He was 18. They married 2 years later. Darin worked with her mother, whose name is Darlie Key, and quickly found, that they liked the finer life, the finer things of life. They had developed a business and things were really booming. They were making seriously good money. They had a nice home. She spent $2,000 on getting fake boobs. I thought it was more than that. I mean, shoot, I don't think that's that much money. Well, I mean, it is a lot of money, but not for that kind of procedure. Look like the home on the movie Home Alone. Okay, I'll have to look at that, Brittany, because I had not ever heard that. I mean, that's highly possible because it's a huge home. It's like 2,500 square foot. It's a massive home. The business was really booming for a bit, and they had cars and boats. And the thing is Darin liked to get into schemes. Darin was always trying to scheme to get more money, insurance fraud and different things with the cars and property. And he had told somebody he had a plan where they were going to come steal everything out of the house while they were gone, and then once he got the insurance money, they'd get everything back. And he just, I don't know, very sketchy kind of behavior on his part. I had read someplace, I've never had this confirmed, so this is the rumor. Hi, Teresa. That he had made the comment the night of the incident, check out her boobs, I paid for those. I don't know if that's true. That's just something that I had read that was said that's never been proven yes or no on that. But I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. Hi, PJ. And so, I don't know. Darin strikes me as, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of high opinion of him. And I have written Darlie. Darlie and I have talked. Just said that a husband to me has always given. Yeah, he does, Brittany. He gives me just the EBGBs. Like, Brandy, did you watch the link I sent you the other day? I don't remember if you said or not. I had already watched that one. I'm going to share some of that here in a little bit, because I had somebody else send it to me like 3 weeks ago when I started going, I really need to just do this case because I've been talking about it. A couple years ago, I started writing Darlie in jail, and Darlie loves to get letters, and now she has a tablet. I need to write her with my new address. And she is absolutely, I'm sorry, she's just, if you think she's guilty, that's fine. But she is super sweet to talk to. She still does not think Darin had anything to do with it. I think she's blind on that, in my opinion. I don't know that he physically had anything to do with it, but I think he was involved somehow, my opinion. And so, Darlie had just had Drake. Drake was 8 months old, and she had been having sleeping problems. And as mamas, I remember with my kids, I could hear them roll over in the bed. But, there could be like a tornado coming through, and I'm not hearing nothing. And so she was having a really, really hard time sleeping. And so Darin was taken over for the night, and she slept downstairs with the boys. I guess they were having a little movie date or whatever. And she woke up. She claims she woke up to, I believe it's Damon. Look, they have Damon, Devon, and Drake, and Darin, and Darlie. They have this thing with the D's, and so I get confused on which is which. One was 6, one was 5, and the baby was 8 months old. And so, but he was touching her shoulder and saying, "Mommy, mommy." And when she woke up, she saw a man at the foot of the couch. She jumps up. There's a struggle. She chases him through the house. And then she comes back and finds both boys stabbed to death. I have a thing I'm going to pull up here in a second that shows the blood trails in where it's marked. It's a diagram, so it's marked, so it's not like super bloody. I was going to look. I really seriously thought about showing a couple of the crime scene autopsy photos, but with the recent events that have happened with Gannon's case, I'm not going to do that. I'll just describe to you what I'm looking at, and I will give the link to the video where they're at later, and you can go watch with that channel. As a matter of fact, I'll drop all of those links in the channels in a minute, because there are a couple of channels that are focused strictly on Darlie, and they have amazing information and conversations and different things, and they break it down in smaller increments. Like one of the witnesses, they break down, it's a 2-hour live just on her testimony and what all went on with her. And hey, everyone coming in the chat that I might be missing, thank you for joining us. I appreciate all of you. And you know, she calls 911. She's screaming for Darin. 911, in the 911 call, you cannot hear. It's really hard to make out what she's saying because she is so freaked out. And Megan, you've never heard of this case? Oh, this one has always had my heart. I have always felt connected to Darlie. She's just a few years older than me. Our kids were the same age, and I just understood her as a mom that liked her hair done and jewelry and makeup. Hey, Sassy. Happy to be here with you all. Thank you for joining us, guys. I so appreciate it. Thank you, Brittany, for sharing. She brought her crew. And so let me go find the 911 call. Hold on, go back. Okay. So let's look. I almost hit leave studio. Trissa, you've never heard of it either? Oh, I'm failing. Okay, so here's the 911 call. Trigger warning. This may be a little traumatic, and so trigger warning. Okay, thanks, bitch. Appreciate it. Let's see. Let's do.
Hang on. Hang on, ma'am. Ma'am, I'm trying to get an ambulance to you. Hang on a minute. What's going on, ma'am? Ma'am, I need you to calm down and talk to me. 1501 Eagle. Ma'am, listen to me. I need you to. Oh my God. Can you take the radio clip? Ma'am, I need you to talk to me. Ma'am, I can't understand you. You're going to have to slow down, calm down, and talk to me. What is going on? Ma'am, is there with you? Ma'am, is there anybody in the house besides you and your children? Oh my God. Okay, how many little boys? Is it 2 boys? Okay, listen to me. Calm down. Go ahead. When are they gonna be here? Ma'am, they're on their way. Ma'am, how old are your boys? What? How old are your boys? No. Okay. Oh my God! Oh my God! Calm down, can you? Your name, Darlie? Can I put that Darin? Yes, please. There's nobody in your head. You don't know who this is? There's a knife. Don't touch anything. Okay, ma'am, listen. There's a police officer at your front door. Is your front door unlocked? Okay. Okay, is 82 out on Eagle? Oh my God. What would they do then? What do you say? Why would they do this? Okay, listen, ma'am. You need to let the officers in the front door, okay? What? Ma'am? You need to let the police officers in the front door. Okay, it's all right. It's okay. We got the press, baby. Ma'am, hang on a second. We walked in here and did it, Darren. Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, is the police officer there? Okay, go talk to him, okay? Yes, that's okay. Go talk to him, okay?
So pretty powerful, I think. I do not see how that could be faked. That's just me. I don't like if she could fake that, she needs an Emmy. It is so much in that call. So much. You can hear the officer when he gets there. You can hear her and Darin trying to save what they can. Um, it just, oh look, I'm closing up the wrong thing. Yeah, where I can watch. So the officers get there and when they go to court now, they tell the court and the jury that she wasn't helping. Well, for one thing, she had a towel on her neck trying to keep herself from bleeding to death. She's getting towels and getting them wet and putting them on the boys to try to stop the bleeding. Trying to remember. I've got to get the names right. Hold on. I got to figure out which one is which. I believe it's Devon. Yeah, Devon is the oldest. They charged her with Damon's murder because he was under 6, and so she could get capital murder. Devon was stabbed. I want to say it was 4 times. It hit his heart and his lungs. Pretty much died instantly, within seconds. He was laying in the middle of the floor. Let me pull. Where is? Let's see. Well, I had it on the other one. Why isn't it? see if it's here. Wait just 1 second, guys. I had this pulled up, but it was on the other tab, and now when I pulled it to here, it didn't save any of it. So that's frustrating. Let's see. Let's do this. There it is. Okay. So let me share this. And when I'm through, guys, I'll open up the panel so anybody can come up and share what they might want to say about the case here. So this here is the blood trail. Yeah, I think y'all can see that good. All right. So the red dots up here on the, by the couch up on the top and over here by the doorway are Damon. So he comes to the couch, touches his mother on the shoulder. She gets up. She's the green dots. She comes this way. She is gone this way. They show her going into the kitchen. They show her going over here, over to where Devon was. And you can see little Damon right here follows his mother to this hallway where she chases the intruder out. And Devon never left. Now, these red X's through here, guys, this is blood that was never tested. They don't know who any of this blood belongs to. Now, you can see up here by the sink, there's yellow and red mixed with this. That's because the boy's blood was found on the sink, but she was getting the towels wet and putting it on them, trying to stop their bleeding. I'm not sure why they were wetting towels to do that, but that is what they were. They claim they were doing. But this blood was never tested. The blood on the couch here, the blood all through here, there were never any other samples taken of any of this. And some of this is footprints. There are bloody footprints. There was a bloody shoe print. None of this in here in the garage area, none of this was tested. Ever tested in a capital murder case. Make that make sense. And here are her injuries. Let's go to her injuries. Let's see. Where? This way. Doesn't give me to where I can just open this easily. So this is the best picture I found of Darlie's injury. This is the injury that goes across her neck onto her chest. She is right-handed. This is on her right side. She would have had to have done these with her left hand, laying on the couch. So her right side, well, let's see, which way was she laying? No, her right side would have been towards the couch, I believe. I'm trying to think of how she was laying. But either way, she had to take her left hand, slice herself like that. This was a pretty deep wound in itself. Here's another view of this with just this. That is a massive cut on her neck. She was in surgery for over an hour. Over an hour. That's a serious surgery. It was within a millimeter of going through into the major artery. That's less than a piece of paper, less than a cigarette wrapper. Very, 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 very thin. This was a deep, deep, deep stab wound to her arm, her right arm. So again, she would have had to do this with her left arm. And she's right hand dominant. After she leaves, and you can see the bruising here on her. Here's the bruising to her arms. They're trying to say she did these to herself, that you didn't see them in the hospital. It takes days for bruises to pop up. I know for me, I can end up with a bruise and never know where it come from because I don't remember when I hit myself. And she was fighting. I mean, look here. Look at the bruise on the wrist and the fingers here. she was fighting. Here is the kitchen area, walking into the kitchen, part of the crime scene. All that blood wasn't tested. This is the hallway. These are towels that were wet with blood on them that she had gotten trying to stop the bleeding on boys. So, look, I'm about to hit the wrong button. And that's just a few. I didn't grab them all because it's a lot. And there is one of Devon covered up with a blanket. I guess they covered him once they realized there was no saving him. They put Damon in the ambulance, take him to the hospital. They never got him back. You know, they look. There is a knife on the counter that Darlie had picked up. They say they didn't find any blood evidence of the knife being anywhere else. Well, they didn't check any of the blood evidence, so how do they know? And there's pictures. I'm gonna pull them up here in a second of the crime scene where they take pictures of that knife in different areas of the house. They even moved it in the house. One footprint they determined was from one of the officers. There was a hair in the window, the cut window screen, that was a blonde hair that a scientist said was Darlie's. It was never tested. When they used that to stop her from getting bond to get out. When they retested it for court, guess who it belonged to? One of the freaking officers. It wasn't even Darlie's. So they contaminated the scene like crazy. Right, Brittany. I don't know how. I mean, it takes some serious effort to bruise yourself like that. Your instincts would stop you. Okay, let me see where I'm at. Another thing they use, and I'm gonna pull it up too, is the memorial service that she did. We'll pull that here in a minute. Because I want to go to this one channel and play a lot of the stuff that he talks about, because he's an attorney and he now does these cases and kind of gives a different feel. Well, he went into this case thinking Darlie was guilty and totally changed his mind with the evidence he found. And there is a lot with the attorney situation. Oh, wait, hold on. Let's go back to her in the hospital. While she's in the hospital, Carrie, so are you saying, Brandy, because the area was so judgmental that they didn't try hard to find the potential truth? Yes. Rowlett Police Department is very small. I don't remember the population. It's not a huge area. They had never really dealt with a case of this magnitude, and they didn't want to bring the FBI in. Texas, I can't speak for other states. What I can speak for with Texas is you have a really hard time, especially in small jurisdictions. They don't like to ask for help. They don't want to give up. They don't want to look inferior. They have this complex of having to be the big dog on the park. And they think that they're better than they are sometimes and screw these cases up. And I think that's what you see it a lot of times. You see it in the Rodney Reed case. You see it. There's another case with Ivan Cantu that I think that happened. But this case here, it's very evident. They seen a woman who had big boobs, blonde hair, jewelry everywhere, and there was jewelry on the counter. She had it out early that day to let a friend use it for going to a concert or something, going out on a date, and she had just left it on the counter. But she was very frugal about the things that she bought. A lot of times she'd go to pawn shops or different things and buy things a lot cheaper. Maybe they should have put someone on death row. That's my thing, Megan. If it's a capital murder case and you're going to put somebody on death row, it needs to be investigated a whole lot differently than this. When they moved her case, they were trying to get her case put in Dallas, which is a huge metroplex, huge, millions of people. And instead, they moved it over to Kerrville, which is Kerr County, which is Mecca Church. We used to go every year for our women's convention there. We sent our youth there, our kids there. There are churches everywhere you turn. And let's see, hold on. What is this one? I missed this comment. I felt like she did it. The memorial service, bubblegum chopping, silly string, smelling bothered me. But when you look at the other evidence, that wasn't pushed into the public eye. Okay, so let's talk about some of that. When she was in the hospital, what they did find that they don't talk about is that her gums were damaged. There was like sores and burning on the inside of her mouth. They were doctoring it with like Vaseline and stuff on Q-tips. So one theory is that one reason why she didn't wake is maybe something had been put in her mouth to knock her out. Chloroform tends to burn, so there wasn't anything on the outside. It's a possibility because guess what? Nothing was ever looked at. So that was the one reason why she was chewing the gum. Now, I have not lost a child, so I cannot speak to what I would do if I lost a child. But I can say that, I mean, I have friends that have lost children, and they do celebrate their birthdays and things differently, and it feels awkward. I have one friend who lost two daughters a year apart on the exact same day. So on that day, we tend to do something special. We do go get lunch and manicures and girls' day and try not to cry. On their birthdays, she does birthday cakes and things. And they had already had all of this silly string and stuff for his birthday, and they had the memorial service, and then decided the sister, the aunt, boy's aunt, mentioned let's celebrate their birthdays, the day he was born, the way he would want. He would want the silly string, and so they did the silly string to celebrate his birth, because that's still something to be very proud of, is the birth of her firstborn, or any of your children for that matter. And so they did the silly string, and she was crying. There were moments of crying. Before that, they had a memorial service that she was almost inconsolable, but they didn't show any of that. Right. Sassy, who are we to say how somebody should act in that time? I think we all grieve differently. Did it look odd? Yeah, because we didn't see any other evidence. We didn't see that they had already had a memorial service crying. Right. And our kids could have loved the bubblegum. The bubblegum could have been a thing for the kids. But also, if you're having anxiety, a lot of people, some people smoke, and so they're smoking like crazy while they're very anxious. They chew candy, chew gum. I chew on my fingers. I'm horrible about chewing on my nails when I'm nervous. Oh my God, the comments are flying. Hold on. I missed one that I was wanting to catch. Right, Brittany. I've never seen the issue with the silver string and the balloons. People still do balloons. I have an issue with balloons, Adam, just because they fly off and then it gets into animals and it causes issues with wildlife. But as far as celebrating life, I don't have a problem with that at all. And I do think, and I can totally understand wanting to do something your baby would have loved on his birthday, the silly string, to honor him. I understand that point. I don't think that was disrespectful, but I can see where people could turn it and make it disrespectful. Thank you, Carrie. Be safe while you drive. Yes, Lolo, very interesting. And I'm getting to that part. Oh wait, hold on, wrong one. It was Wake Up that had it. Sorry, Chance Flippin'. The song Down the Alley. So the law enforcement claim that Darlie stabs her children, takes the sock, plants it down the alley, comes back, stabs herself, and stages a crime scene. Then again, they say that she's covered in this blood, she's walked through, but there's no blood in the yard, there's no blood anywhere else, and that's why they dropped the intruder theory, because there was no evidence of an intruder, but there's no evidence of her doing it either. And oh Lord. Damon's injuries, I had stopped to think where I was at. Damon's injuries were of, he needed immediate help. I mean, when the officer got there, he was still breathing. He was barely there, but he was still breathing. Had she done what they said, stabbed both kids, take the sock, stage the scene, all of that, he would not have been breathing when the officer got there. And I wish I had that video, but I had seen that a long time ago where somebody had broke that down on the type of injuries and how long he had and how long it would have taken to do all of that. And he would have already been gone. And the fact that he was still there, he was still there still alive when they got there. That's just not the case. So, I mean, again, because of the shoddy police work, it's really hard to tell. This crime scene is a mess. It is so corrupted. There's blood everywhere. They've moved the knife everywhere. You've got officers' hair in the window. You've got officers' footprints in the blood. You've got one footprint that they didn't test. You've got a fingerprint. There is a fingerprint in blood on the coffee table that matches no one in the home. And it doesn't, they never took the fingerprints of the boys, but it's an adult print. It's not a kid's print. Thank you, Britt. So this is one piece of evidence that the Innocence Project is using. They are trying to figure out this fingerprint because it doesn't belong to any of the officers. It belongs to no one else in the home or who had been in the home before, like friends and all of that. Now, they say that when he goes out that window, and there's a really good part I won't play here in a second, that there was no mulch disturbed under the window. There was no mulch under the window. It was next to the window. Underneath that window is concrete. They say that no dirt was disturbed. Well, I'm looking at that windowsill in those pictures, and there's no dirt to disturb. There are cigarette butts out there because they did not like cigarette smoking, so all of their friends and family that smoked would go into the garage and smoke out that window. Hi, Alma. Thank you. There was a bread knife in the knife block that had a fiber on it that they tested that their experts said was the same fibers, could be the same fibers from the window screen, but was tested for, with fingerprint dust with the little, that brush has the same kind of fibers. So does the cleaning sponge. The state never compared the fibers found on the knife with the fingerprint brush or the scrub brush. None of it was cross-tested to prove or disprove either way. So in a death penalty case, that's bare minimum of what should have been done, period. Thank you for talking about this case. I remember it well and didn't follow afterwards. Yeah, the blood trails are insane. When I saw that the other day, I was like, oh my God, that's a lot of blood that's not tested. Granted, I don't know that you can, is it feasible to test every single spot? No, but there should have been more spots tested than what were, especially in this kind of case. So after the memorial, Darlie's arrested, and they're, they try to get her a bond. They say the blonde hair was hers. That's why they deny bond. Find out it's not hers. It's cops. At this point, I'm not shocked by anything. I'm really not. It's sad. Yes, the website is darliefacts.com. I'll put that in my description links here in just a second. Or look, let me drop the link, because I am using that for quite a bit of this. Let's see. Here it is. Let me get this link for y'all. This is the website that has a lot of the facts for this case. And that's where I've been pulling a lot of mine up. So, they go in She has a court-appointed attorney. They're using the fact they're saying they're about to lose their home. They were 2 months behind on their home, but he was waiting on payouts. He had accounts outstanding that he was waiting at like $26,000 or $28,000 worth. Right after all of this happened, he got all that money. House note was caught up and everything else. I think they were living above their means? Yes, I do. Just like with the Watts case, they are spending because you got a lot of money coming in, and then it's not so much coming in, and you're still spending. They don't, you don't adjust. They're not adjusting for their cost of living and all of that like they should. And I mean, do any of us in our 20s? I mean, I don't know that I did in my 20s either. They used the fact that there were life insurance policies, and that's why she killed the children. $5,000 each, $10,000 life insurance policies. She had a $430,000 life insurance policy on her. They spent more than the 10 grand on the funerals for the boys. So they didn't make any money. And back then, I remember when I don't know if it's still the same because I don't have small children, but when my kids were little, with our life insurance policy, we could add a burial plan for the kids, which was a $5,000 plan for a penny. And we did. And I don't know if they still do it that way or not, but that's how it was in the 90s because that's what we had. And so I was never put off by that. I just kept thinking, why? That's not enough money. You still have to bury your child, and funerals are expensive. Super expensive. Yeah, Juju, it's nothing for life insurance. $5,000, that didn't make any sense to me. So after, she's got this attorney, he has got all these investigators and professional witnesses to testify for her and all of this information. But he was going to be trying to pin it on Darin and put that, because in this kind of case, they needed doubt. They needed some kind of doubt for the jury. And when Darin found out, Darin hired another attorney and they fired him. Now, the other attorney was also the attorney for Darin and Darlie Key because they had gotten in trouble. There was a gag order on the case and they were doing interviews and they filed charges on them. So they went and hired this big dog attorney, Doug Mulder, who was a massive prosecutor. He has when he was a prosecutor, over 2 dozen death row convictions. He was a massive attorney, and he went into the private sector and started doing defense attorneys, and so he picked their case. Well, he tells them, look, you hire me for her case, and I'm not going to try to pin it on you. I'm not ever going to say you even did it. And that's what they did. They paid him $90,000. They weren't about to lose the home. That's a bunch of crap, and that was never shown. Mulder didn't even show that to the court. So, let's see. So, they fire, what is his name? I think it's Davis. And bring in Mulder, and Mulder does nothing. Doesn't take the witnesses that he's got already lined out, that's already looked at the case. He literally takes this case with 9 weeks to prepare. In a capital murder case, most attorneys require a minimum 18 months to prepare. He had 9 weeks to prepare for this case. My mother's funeral a week ago was $14,600. I know because I wrote the check. My dad didn't skimp on anything. Lolo, I am so sorry about your mother. My heart goes out to you. My brother passed away in June, so I feel for you, and it's sad. Funeral shouldn't cost this much. They shouldn't. My brother didn't even have an elaborate funeral, and it cost me and my brother out the ass because he had nothing, so we had to pay for it. But I am so sorry about your mom. Thank you, bitch. So I tell you what, let's pull up. Let me go find him. Was it supposed to do that? Let's see. Let's do history. So the one that I'm about to play, oh, not like that. I'm not. Is Behind Criminal Lines. Is that what's called? Isn't it? I'm gonna drop the link here in just a second too. I'm gonna skip through different parts of it. He breaks this down in a way that, those of us in true crime, we're mouthpieces. A lot of us don't have credentials. We don't have degrees, and this guy does. And so I think what he shares is very credible. You're a mess, bitch. So I am going to, let's share this and let's kind of go through some of it's 3 hours. We're not going to do all of it. I'm going to drop the link. You can go watch it later and watch it in its entirety. Because it's a lot. But there are a few that I really, really want to share. Let's see. I'm going to share this. Let's go here. Let's see. I wanted to do... Let's see. Let me find my notes where I wrote it down on my time dots. Okay, let's go. Okay, let's go here.
To bring the most viable case against Darlie Routier and intentionally only pursued the criminal action for the homicide of Damon and not Devon. This legal maneuver allowed for them to pursue a crime eligible for capital punishment due to the boy's age. Despite the overwhelming consensus by the general public concerning Darlie's guilt at the time, these experienced prosecutors knew from the beginning that motive would be a considerable issue for their case. While the state does not need to prove motive, it cannot, however, be ignored. And in Prosecutor Greg Davis's opening, he outlined for the jury the indictment and case against Darlie Lynn Routier. But these are the primary tenets of criminality brought against her during her trial. Number 1, Darlie Routier was materialistic, vain, and demonstrated behavior unbecoming of a mother. Number 2, Darlie's statements were inconsistent and appeared to contain evidence of a cover-up. Number 3, Darlie failed to provide any medical assistance to her children at the scene of the crime. 4, law enforcement was unable to find evidence of an intruder. Number 5, forensic evidence found inside the Routier house showed signs of a staged crime scene. Number 6, Darlie's wounds were deemed medically superficial and were inconsistent with the severity of the injuries sustained by Damon and Devon, injuries that were believed to have been self-inflicted. Since these were the primary claims made by prosecutors, we will now begin to analyze each claim brought forward by the state. From the opening statements of the trial, the prosecution quickly set the stage for the jury concerning the character of Darlie Routier. She was regularly and repeatedly described as a vapid, selfish, and absent-minded mother who was so motivated by greed and material possessions that she ended the lives of her 2 eldest boys out of rage, convenience, and ultimately for financial gain in the form of their tandem $5,000 life insurance policies. The following is an exact quote from Prosecutor Greg Davis's opening statement that he spoke to the jury at the commencement of Darlie's trial. Quote, "And perhaps most importantly, the evidence will show you that the money train from Darin's business was beginning to peter out. When we come to June 5th, 1996, the evidence is going to show you that those problems began to worsen, and they have worsened over time. By that date, the defendant right over there still had not lost the weight that she had gained during her pregnancy, and that had led her by June 5th, 1996, to begin taking pills in order to try and get back that figure. She was no longer the glamorous, blonde center of attention by that date. By this time, Drake was 8 months old. Drake, Devon, and Damon were taking up more and more of her time. And by this time, she was becoming angry because, in fact, her lifestyle that she had grown accustomed to, the vacations, the buying sprees, the nice things, the freedom, those things were starting to go away. Unquote.
I don't like this defense attorney. I mean, this prosecutor. I'm just going to be honest. I don't like him. You know, they are not supposed to focus on those things. I think they even brought into the fact that she was the one witness, Basha Lavelle. They call her Barbara Lavelle. She was a friend of theirs. She worked with them for many, many years. And when it shows my internet is slow, I hope it's behaving. I'm in the rural area and my internet sucks, especially in the evenings. That's why I really should probably go during the day. Anyways, she would say that I lost my train of thought. Hold on, I lost my train of thought. I don't know what my train of thought was with that. Maybe it'll come back to me in a minute. Oh, that's what it was. She talked about the fact that when Darlie was in the hospital, she went out there and Darlie asked to speak to her alone. And she told her that she was scared they were going to find her sex toys in her room. And they kind of hounded on that a lot because in the 90s, that was a no-no. You weren't supposed to be sexually active and want to play and do all those things. Now it's a normal everyday occurrence and it's very open. Back then, you were frowned upon. And there's some rumors that this Basha chick had a thing for Darin because she really kind of did Darlie pretty dirty. I didn't like her. So I'm going to go to another spot. I'm going to fast forward through some of it because it's very, very long. So let's go to this other spot about her injuries.
Evidence against their client, but there was still additional evidence that would become far more important to the jury. An unstoppable train picking up speed on a one-way destination headed straight for Darlie Routier. One of the most considerable hurdles the prosecution laid for the defense was the differentiation between the catastrophic injuries sustained by Damon and Devon and the fairly minor injuries Darlie suffered. The prosecution would call the various treating medical providers to the stand who testified to the fact that Darlie's neck wound was entirely superficial. The treating providers would also testify that the depth of her neck injury was minor enough that it would only require minor stitching to close and was nowhere near the severity of what the Routier boys had suffered. During their testimony, it was regularly repeated that her injuries were superficial, a term that was used so frequently in relation to Darlie's injuries that nearly 30 years later, it is one of the most widely known facts portrayed about Darlie's case. Additionally, experts would testify at trial that her injuries appeared to have been self-inflicted when compared to the evidence at the crime scene. Darlie's story was that she had sustained the injury to her neck while still laying on the couch. But during trial, prosecutors would point out to the jury the lack of blood evidence on the couch that in any way supported her claim. When taken in tandem with what investigators found at the sink, which included extensive amounts of pooled blood evidence, prosecutors explained to the jury that this was consistent with a self-inflicted injury over the kitchen sink that was entirely superficial and nowhere near the severity of what Damon and Devon endured. Now, to those of you who have previously watched my content, you are already likely aware of the fact that I intentionally steer away from discussing details that are uncharacteristically unsafe for young audiences. There are a number of reasons why I do this, but most of all, it is to honor the victims in this case. Since beginning this channel late last year, I have received dozens of comments from mothers and fathers alike who have thanked me for creating content with that in mind, content that they are often able to enjoy in the company of their children. And I will continue to make this my focus for many years to come here on YouTube. Now, to those who are already familiar with this case, you are likely already aware of the specific details of what happened to the Routier boys, which has been discussed at length by virtually every documentary that has ever covered this horrific tragedy. Frankly, I don't want to contribute to that in this video. However, to those who are interested in studying this case further, I will provide additional resources in the description for your own personal analysis. But I will simply say this: what happened on June 6, 1996 is an unimaginable and horrific tragedy. And before I'm done with this video, I will do my best to honor the lives of Damon and Devon Routier and the happy, joyful, and full lives they lived. So with that said, let's continue. One of the most important moments of any jury trial is the closing arguments. A well-prepared closing can make or break your case.
I'm going to move it on to another one because we kind of, oh no, you know what? Never mind. There was something in this part I wanted to hear.
And no one understands that better than prosecutor Jeff Ashton. By the time he stood in front of the jury, he was so thoroughly convinced that he had won them over, that he had succeeded in establishing the guilt of the defendant, that he didn't even bother to try and establish the most important part of his case: guilt proven beyond any reasonable doubt. Many who have watched his closing arguments have noted that he appears arrogant, overly confident, and even seems to condescend to anyone who might think that the state had not succeeded in proving their case. And I imagine that was precisely why he was completely shocked when the jury read their verdict.
As to the charge of first-degree murder, verdict as to count 1, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
Yeah, see, with Casey Anthony, the prosecutors were so arrogant, they didn't give the jury any other option. And the evidence was not there for what they were trying to do to her. And that's why she walked away, because they were too arrogant. I wish it would have been the same with Darlie, but it just, I don't know. It's so frustrating.
See?
A talented and experienced prosecutor understands that a well-constructed case is built on the foundation of evidence, forensics, expert witnesses, and facts. But every prosecutor, above all else, wants something even the same day. Prosecutor Greg Davis would have the opportunity to provide the jury with his own closing statement, but he wouldn't spend his time regaling the jury over the minutia of the factual evidence nearly as much as he would try to achieve the one thing the state had wanted from the very beginning: hearts and minds. In his closing remarks, he compared Darlie to the likes of Susan Smith, a case that had also featured a mother who had initially claimed that someone else had been responsible for the unspeakable acts against her children, only to find out that she had been responsible all along. The Susan Smith case had inflamed a wildfire of vitriol and anger from the general public, and Prosecutor Davis made certain to draw that comparison to his defendant, who was still insisting on her innocence. In his closing, he also compared her to the likes of Charles Manson, taking time to remind the jury of Darlie's failures as a mother the morning of June 6th, failing to help her children despite being instructed to do so by first responders. But it was towards the end of his impassioned speech that he turned away from the jury and took aim at Darlie herself in a way that was designed to get her to respond. Prosecutor Davis understood that the state's case lacked a clear and uncontestable motive, but if he could somehow get Darlie to show the jury a moment of rage, then he could prove that she was capable of the crimes for which she now stood trial. These are some of the final words of Prosecutor Greg Davis's closing statements. Quote, "You know she did it, and the defense keeps saying that I didn't show you why she did it, and I think I did. We have a pretty good snapshot look at what this woman's life was like back then. It was so desperate that on May 3rd, 1996, in this beautifully normal American home with no problems in it, this woman is contemplating ending her own life. You know it wasn't good there. You know the pressures were building up with the children. You know she was unhappy that she hadn't had a girl. She was unhappy with her weight and her appearance. And she's unhappy that she's not getting the attention from her husband that she wants to get. And she is unhappy about their financial situation. Unquote. In his final words, he described what the state believed happened that night in the Routier home in graphic and painstaking detail. After describing for the jury what the state believed Darlie had done, he took aim and fired his most direct shot, telling the jury that she was the one who was responsible for everything that happened to Devon and Damon Routier that morning. And after 45 minutes of listening to his onslaught against her, Darlie broke in an uncontrolled outburst, shouting back, "Liar! You are a liar! I did not end the lives of my children." And with that outburst, Prosecutor Davis had won. He had succeeded in ringing a bell that could not be unrung. It was then that he looked at the jury, having shown them her anger in a way that no amount of evidence could. And in that moment, he achieved everything he could have wanted in the prosecution of Darlie Lynn Routier.
Look at that baby. He is so precious. Oh, I can imagine he was a handful. I have to respectfully disagree with you on that one. If I had been a juror on the Casey Anthony case, I would have definitely voted guilty. That was the case that sparked my true crime interest. I respect that, Lisa. I go back and forth with that one, and I just have a lot of different reasons for that. It confuses me. It really does. But I do think that the prosecution over eagerness is what caused her to not be found guilty. She did want a little girl, Megan, but I don't think that was it. She was a great mother. All the kids come to her house. They did all kinds of things with them, and cookies and, play dates. And they would talk about the fact that she let the boys just run the neighborhood. Well, I'll show you the neighborhood in a minute. That's a nice neighborhood. I would have in the 90s, I let my kids go everywhere too in the area because it was safe and normal. Did she get overwhelmed? Yes. Did she raise her voice at her kids? Yes. Don't we all at some point or another? See, I would have gone off when he was going at her like that. I would have probably lost it too. I don't blame her for going off on him, and losing her shit. She's being accused of killing her babies. They've even said that the reason why she calls them her babies is because she couldn't put their names and humanize them. It was a way of detaching from who they were as people. My kids are 26, 31, 30, and 34. I still call them my babies. My son, I introduce him all the time as my baby boy. So I don't have an issue with that. I never understood how this lady was convicted. Lisa, I agree. It just makes no sense to me. I'm going to kind of rush through some of these because I know I don't want to go too long and y'all leave me because I want y'all to see it all. But I want to show the video too of the neighborhood. But there's so much in this, and he gets to a point in a minute that is extremely important for those that might be on the fence and think that she's guilty. But let's go to this part. Here. Okay.
Because it's about to get much worse. In the months prior to being fired by the Routiers, Public Defender Parks had already developed a theory that involved Darlie's husband Darin as the perpetrator of the crime. Now, this is a very common tactic in any criminal defense case, but even more so in the case of Darlie Routier, because the allegation had teeth as well as evidence to support it. Most especially when you consider that years after the trial, Darin would produce an affidavit wherein he would admit that he had been telling virtually everyone he knew about his financial woes. He would admit that he had even approached several people to ask them to come to his house and stage a robbery for the purposes of collecting insurance money. Not to mention the fact that Darin had a life insurance policy on Darlie worth $250,000. Let me say that just one more time. The policy that was on the life of Darlie Lynn Routier, policy that would have been payable to her husband Darin, was worth $250,000. And that information is compounded by the fact that Darin had spent much of the preceding months prior to the attacks telling everyone and anyone to come to his house and effectively stage a home invasion. Now, Attorney Parks was not aware of this information in the beginning of his work on Darlie's case, but he knew what every good defense attorney understands, that he had to give the jury evidence that supported reasonable doubt, that he had to give them an alternative, someone other than his own client. So when Attorney Parks learned that his replacement was not at all interested in involving Darin in the crime, he was completely dumbfounded. Now, it goes without saying that most attorneys who have just been fired, especially overworked public defenders, would simply cut their losses and move on. But Attorney Parks was not most attorneys. In fact, the decision by Attorney Mulder to not involve Darin in Darlie's defense was so concerning to him that he wrote Attorney Mulder a letter directly expressing his concerns. But his efforts would ultimately fall on deaf ears, as Darlie's new attorney would respond to his concerns by saying that he did not believe Darin had any involvement in the crime, and in the same breath admitted that he had not reviewed any of the evidence against Darin from the public defender's office.
Like, seriously, that makes me angry. I'm surprised I didn't hear the German Shepherd giving me kisses. Ugh, got dog slobber everywhere. But that makes me angry. Like, let's just ignore it. I don't believe he did it. It doesn't matter whether you believe he did it. You need that doubt for your client that you're being paid $90,000 to defend. This dude right here should have lost his license. Seriously, should have lost his license. All right, so I'm going to skip to this part.
At this moment in time, still weeks before the commencement of Darlie's trial, even the state believed that Darin had been involved in the crime, and they said as much in their filing. It read as follows: investigations are ongoing with regards to the analysis of physical evidence, and recent analysis of the physical evidence suggests that Darren Routier may have participated. And if that wasn't bad enough, Attorney Mulder had all of the following evidence available to him. 1, he knew that Darin's hair had been found on the murder weapon found at the crime scene. 2,
Let that sink in. Darin's hair is on the murder weapon.
he had evidence that showed law enforcement had found the blood-stained sock in the alley that contained fibers from Darin's blood-stained sneakers.
Oh, go figure.
3, he was also aware of Darin's inconsistent statements concerning his blood-stained jeans. 4, he knew that blood was also found on Darin's underwear.
Y'all see that? Y'all see that? Do y'all see that? That makes me angry. That makes me angry.
And 5, Attorney Mulder was completely aware of Darin's inconsistent statements and suspicious behavior that occurred at the crime scene and at the hospital. So now, after both sides had expressed their concerns to the court and to Attorney Mulder concerning his wildly inappropriate conflicts of interest and his promise to Darin to not accuse him despite all of the credible and forensic evidence, what do you imagine his response to the state's court filing was? Because I'd be willing to bet my oceanfront property in Arizona that you probably wouldn't guess that after the innumerable reasons he had to include Darin in Darlie's defense, he simply didn't say anything at all. But even more disconcerting than all of that evidence that was known or should have been known to Attorney Mulder was the fact that Darin himself would later admit in a sworn affidavit that in the spring of 1996, he had spoken with Darlie's stepfather. And in that conversation, he asked him, quote, if he knew of anyone who would agree to burglarize his home as part of an insurance scam, unquote. In Darin's own sworn affidavit, he also stated that, quote, he and his family would be gone from the house and that the burglar would come to the house with a U-Haul truck and remove gobs of stuff from the house, which he would then retrieve after the insurance company paid off.
See, I was telling you all about that a while ago. It just... It's just so frustrating. Okay, so let's go to this part.
For the heinous crimes that were committed against those 4 innocent people, but we cannot allow the justice system to become an echo chamber of assumed guilt. Unfortunately, this very same issue of guilty until proven innocent seemed to haunt the case of Darlie Routier from the very beginning. And this assumption of guilt was demonstrated in virtually every aspect of the case that the state brought against Darlie, but more specifically, how the state portrayed her character to the jury. Sadly, most people do not know that when you are a criminal defendant, there are very specific rules that prosecutors must follow, specific to their claims and discussions of your character. One of the most fundamental elements of those guidelines precisely speaks to how criminal actions are to be conducted in front of a jury and specifically states the following: that a defendant's bad character cannot be used to argue that the defendant committed the crime for which he or she is being tried, or that they had the propensity to commit the crime. Further noting that a prosecutor who dwells on a defendant's alleged bad character in this prohibited manner may be found to have engaged in prosecutorial misconduct. Simply put, a defendant must be tried on the facts of the case stemming from the crime itself, not on claims made by prosecutors concerning their assumed guilt due to allegations of their faulty or problematic character. So I began to dig through the statements made by the prosecutors during Darlie's trial, and I didn't have to look far to find the first of many clear violations of these important guidelines. Because legally speaking, what I found in the pages of these court transcripts is completely unbelievable. These are the words of Prosecutor Greg Davis, spoken to the jury about defendant Darlie Routier. The evidence will show you that the real Darlie Routier is in fact a self-centered woman, a materialistic woman, a woman cold enough, in fact, to murder her own 2 children. And we sat through 4.5 weeks seeing the evil displayed before us. And today that evil goes by the name of Darlie Lynn Routier. She sits here crying before you as she did on Saturday. We know what she's all about at this point of the trial, don't we? She is not like us. Don't get into that game about she is like me. She ain't. There's just no way that she is. We do know that at times we are dealing with the principalities of evil in this world. And a delegate sits among us right now of that evil. And her name is Darlie Lynn Routier. When I first read those words, I almost couldn't believe that they were spoken by any lawyer, let alone a prosecutor, inside of a courtroom during trial in front of an actual jury. Because even if the person that those words were spoken to was someone who had already admitted to committing this crime, the fact of the matter is they fly in the face of everything that our judicial system is founded upon. The rules that I quite literally just read prohibit this exact kind of behavior. Now, I understand that we may not like that, but there is an expectation that if you are standing trial for a capital offense, facing life or death, that the religion of the jury cannot be weaponized against you, while a prosecutor places into the minds of that jury that you are a literal delegate of evil. And even if the words of Prosecutor Davis had been spoken concerning the likes of Charles Manson or Ted Bundy or Jeffrey Dahmer, I would be equally as impassioned in my response, predicated on the foundation that they are the definition of an unethical and willful violation of the rules of ethics and criminal procedure that governs all lawyers, irrespective of how we may feel about the person standing trial. And it is precisely for this reason why our courts do not allow these kinds of character attacks from prosecutors. It's very...
I think that is very important. He is standing in front of a jury of people. This isn't a jury of her peers. We have the right to a jury of our peers. She is in front of a jury of people who go to church every Sunday, who... When the jury was polled after this, a lot of them talked about the fact that moms don't get boob jobs. Moms don't like material things. Moms don't do this. Moms don't do that. And they judged her off of her appearance and the fact that she didn't go to church, because that's why he asked it. And that's why he made sure to say, she's not like us. She don't go to church. She's not saved. She's not a Jesus. She is Satan. That's pretty much what he was telling them. And that's frustrating. Does anyone know how it works with the Innocence Project? If you're a DR and all out of appeals, do they put a stay of the sentence until the... okay, so a lot of people are saying she's out of appeals, but when I look it up, it still says she has appeals. So I need to ask. What happens with that is they tend to go to higher courts and Supreme Court and things like that, and give certain things, and try to get stays of executions. I know, like Ivan Cantu, he was supposed to be executed in April and got a stay of execution, and for the opportunity for something else to go forward, and he's out of appeals. So it can happen, but I don't know. I know I've heard a couple of times people saying she's out of appeals, but that's not what I'm reading. So I don't know for sure on that. Exactly, Lisa. I used to be very pro death penalty. I was very avid death penalty. And when I had somebody say, Brandy, check out the Rodney Reed case. And I looked into the Rodney Reed case, and that happened not far from me. It dawned on me quickly that the death penalty was not okay. I think the death penalty needs to be for cases like serial killers, mass shooters, school shooters, those kinds of cases where that evidence is 100% super glue proof. You know what I mean? It is, you've got video of this person, go to the Parkland school shooting, you've got video of this perpetrator shooting and murdering these children. There's proof he did it. You know what I mean? Those kinds of cases I do think can support the death penalty. But this kind of case, no. The only reason they did one son for this is because they knew if they couldn't recharge her, if they charged her for both children's death and tried to get anything, and the jury come back with not guilty, they didn't have anything else to do. So if they only did one child and they came back not guilty, then they had the other child to charge her with. So what happens is if this case gets overturned, that's what they can do. I don't know that they would go forward. Who knows with Texas? Texas doesn't like to be wrong. Our officials like to be right all the time. It's a thing. The sad thing is, they really suspected Darin to the point CPS took the baby from them. And his parents filed for temporary custody and all. That's just how sure they were that Darin was involved. They didn't feel that the baby was safe, but they never went forward with anything, and that just baffles me. Just baffles me. And then poor Drake, this is another thing a lot of people may not realize. Drake ended up with leukemia when he was 17. So he had to fight cancer without his mother. and she had to sit behind concrete walls, not able to hold her child while he went through this horrible disease. Now Drake is okay now. He is healthy. He has beat cancer and he's doing great. He still goes and sees his mother. Yes, Juju. I have not paid a lot of attention to the Avia case, and I need to because what little bit I have seen is insane. No, bitch, he was denied everything. There's one more thing that just went forward with the other courts, but it's all been sent back, sadly. So I want to fast forward to, because they talk about her memory and all of that being bad, and her stories kind of changing. Now her stories may have changed a little bit, but it never was like the man, I woke up to hearing the man was in the kitchen. It was always he was in the area. Nothing. To me, the stories didn't change enough to raise a red flag. And here's the thing: if her story would have been exact, word for word each time, they would have said she memorized it and was lying. So there was a no-win, in my opinion, on that. But let's go. This lawyer has some really good information because he was part of a lawsuit with the fen-phen stuff, the fen-phen medications. And he was watching one of Lisa Gibbons episodes, and they talked about her being on fen-phen. And it dawned on him, that was where it turned for him, because at that point, he was thinking she was guilty until this information come up. So the stuff he shares here is really good. And I have 2 different times wrote down. So let's just see here. I may fast forward it real quick.
A feeling of despondency because while we were settling their cases for the injuries covered by the litigation, there were countless clients who believed that there were additional injuries that they had sustained in connection to the diet pills, injuries that were unable to be included in the litigation. Fen-phen was pulled off the market on September 5th, considerable part of the trial record, but I had not yet completed it. And until that moment, I was not aware of something critical that the former mother-in-law of Darlie Routier had just said. It was one of the only moments in my entire life that I can recall having a literal flashback to one of the most formidable periods of my legal career. In a flash, memories from that time of my life flooded back into focus. Nearly a decade of my career where I had been recruited for one singular litigation wherein my law firm would represent nearly 30,000 clients across the entire United States, that to that point would become the single largest mass tort litigation in American history. I began to remember the countless clients I had met with face to face, people who I would get to know personally over the course of nearly 8 years, learning every aspect of their lives and how they had been affected. It brought me back to the thousands of clients that I would speak with on the phone, meet with in person, logging hundreds of thousands of hours into their individual case files. People who would become more than just a number, but very much like family, regularly calling to provide important updates about their lives, their daily struggles, and most importantly, all of this.
I'm going to fast forward it to the other one because he talks really long-winded about the different cases. And I think this other part is where it goes into the medical journals of it. Let's see right here.
Depression, drastic sleep pattern changes, and other neurological issues in a state across the country over the course of several years. And it was a task that I and a few other legal representatives in my firm were tasked to complete. In addition, we would conduct in-person depositions that would allow us to gain a deeper understanding of our clients' medical history and to preserve their rights for any future settlements that they were entitled to. Over the next few years, I would eventually travel to nearly every state in the union, meeting with hundreds and eventually thousands of clients in person. And it was during those in-person meetings that I first began to notice a reoccurring problem. By the time our clients came to us to have their echocardiogram conducted, they were already well aware that we would be pursuing their case on the basis of the injuries they had sustained to their heart or lungs. But from my very first trip, I would be confronted by an entirely unexpected set of problems. Clients began continuously telling me about the neurological problems that they were having from taking the diet pills. From the very first day, I began hearing clients complain of short-term memory loss, depression, drastic sleep pattern changes, and other neurological issues that were not the basis for our representation. Over and over, I would sadly be forced to explain to each person that while these issues were horrible, that we were not able to pursue them as part of our case against the makers of fen-phen. I wouldn't learn until much later that the reason we weren't pursuing it was because the drug makers had intentionally never published the neurological effects on humans in their clinical trials. And this was despite the fact that other studies had already demonstrated neurological damage from the drug.
Y'all,
Towards
look at this. Look at these listed: depression, memory loss, confusion, headaches, suicidability. You know, she's got the journal entries that they've talked about, where she wants to take her own life. Not to mention, she was probably still suffering with a little bit of postpartum depression. But look at all of these where it says depression, panic attacks, poor memory, insomnia, compulsive behavior, mood instability, panic attacks. This is crazy. This is crazy.
the end of the litigation, we discovered that the pharmaceutical companies who had made fen-phen appear to intentionally avoid financially supporting any of the studies on the human brain, precisely because they already knew their drug to be neurotoxic. And much of this information was not made public due to non-disclosure agreements arising from the eventual settlements. But for nearly 8 years of my career, I was the primary contact for thousands of clients who would call in periodically to provide medical updates. And the number of times that I heard each of them tell me about how they were affected neurologically was simply staggering. People who would sometimes scream and yell in frustration, furious that we were unable to sue the makers of the diet drug because of their inability to function normally. These conversations happened so frequently that the managing partners of my law firm began sending letters explaining to each client that we were unable to pursue cases on the basis of neurological damage alone, a decision that I never supported, but was entirely out of my hands. In 2003, I met a young woman in her late 20s in Grand Rapids, Michigan, during one of my trips to conduct client echocardiograms. And the story she told me that day is one that I will truly never forget. She had been in her final year of her master's degree program when she decided to start taking fen-phen to help lose the weight that she had gained during her previous year of schooling. She sat there in tears as she explained how she wasn't the same anymore, how despite being at the top of her class in high school and her undergrad, always maintaining a 4.0, that after
I don't think this story pertains, but it definitely could be explain a lot of things. It could explain why she wasn't sleeping. It could explain her depression, her memory loss, her struggles. I mean, there's just a lot there. Let's see. Let's go to this spot.
Due to this catastrophic error, the assumption tends to be that since evidence wasn't presented to the jury, it either did.
Hold on. What spot did I pick there? Let's do that.
Due to this catastrophic error, the assumption tends to be, and many of the people who were diagnosed with that disease only took fen-phen for 3 to 4 weeks. Digging through Darlie's case records, I was stunned when I came across the documents that told me exactly how long she had been on this cardiac, respiratory, and neurotoxic pharmaceutical.
So when I took fen-phen, I don't even think it was a full week's worth. I had like my chest pounded. I already deal with depression and anxiety. Those were magnified. I couldn't sleep. Like I was probably an hour to 2 hours a night. And my doctor finally said, no, you can't do this. No. And he literally gave me some like 2 sleeping pills to take to make myself sleep for about 24 hours to get my system back because I was not okay. So she talks about not sleeping well, and that's the baby was kind of keeping her up, and that's why she wanted to go downstairs. I think it had a lot to do with the fen on top of mommy hormones, and we hear our babies move, and there's so many factors that are playing into this, and she finally just crashed and burned, and then she didn't wake up. And he talks about there's a client that he had that slept through a tornado and it freaked her out, and so that was when it kind of hit him that that's what was going on here.
Pharmaceutical drug that would ravage the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. And when I saw it, I almost couldn't believe the words on the page. Darlie Routier had taken fen for 4 months by the morning of June 6, 1996. So it was at that moment that I resolved to go back through the entirety of Darlie's case to see if there was evidence that could support her claims of innocence, firmly establishing reasonable doubt, and allow me to make that impossible climb up that mountain, and to finally answer the questions that I had started out with from the very beginning. Is Darlie Routier guilty beyond any reasonable doubt? And does she deserve to be on death row? And what I was about to find would allow me to answer those questions. By the time Darlie's defense was presented to the jury, it was evident to anyone watching that her team would need to put forward believable evidence to counter the litany of claims that had been presented by the prosecution. But as I read through the court transcripts, I was amazed at the consistent failures by her defense team to do exactly that. Usually, when you evaluate a case that has already gone through the trial process, you can very easily find the evidence that was presented from both the prosecution and the defense. And as we already know, this didn't happen in Darlie's trial in one of the most widely discussed areas by those who support her guilt, the forensic evidence. Due to this catastrophic error, the assumption tends to be that since evidence wasn't presented to the jury, it either didn't exist or wasn't credible. Well, thankfully, forensic experts Terry Laber and Bart Epstein have since provided the appellate court evidence that did support Darlie's claims, despite the fact that they were never allowed to finish their work. But let's evaluate the primary issues brought against Darlie at trial and see if, in fact, there are any signs of reasonable doubt. The prosecution's claim that Darlie's...
So we discussed the injury a while ago, and it's how, they say superficial compared to the children. Well, yeah, the children passed away from their injuries. Oh, Lord, I forget which one it was again. I can't keep up with which baby was which. I think it was Damon. Yes, Damon was the baby, was the middle one. His injuries, there are 6 wounds in the middle of his back, or upper back and middle. 4 wounds on the picture that I have. Like I said in the beginning, I wasn't going to share those photos. I have those photos. I'm not going to share them. I will drop the link in a little bit to which video they're in. I'll do that in the description, and people can go watch that for themselves. And they said they did it with the family's permission. They do work with the family. They are friends with Darlie, and they were doing it for educational purposes. I do not feel comfortable with sharing them. But his injuries, there were 4 wounds on the crime scene photo that are marked 1 through 4 in white. The other 2 are marked 1 and 2, and they're done in black. And the reason for that is the injuries are completely different objects, or different sizes, not objects. The 1 and 2 that are the black letters up on top are smaller and look to be a little bit different in shape. The other ones are very deep, big wounds. They're really huge, opening, big gaping wounds. And the reason most of the time in crime scene photos, when they mark them differently like that, it's because it's 2 separate weapons. And they do that so you can identify which knife or which object, which weapon did what. And so I think they even think there was a second weapon. You know what I mean? And so that really, really concerns me. That they're just not being honest, and that's so frustrating. So frustrating. Let's jump over, because I want to jump here in a minute and get to and I know this is going longer than what I usually do. I want to show the neighborhood, but I want to go through and show the windowsill. So let's go to the windowsill so that you can see what that looked like and the difference. And of course, I dropped the link for this video, so please go back and give him a watch, and you can see he does such an amazing job. I think it's right here. I think this is it.
But I do have a bone to pick that I am absolutely tired of hearing whenever I listen to anyone discuss this case. Because another one of the most frequently repeated claims that has been made by the prosecution and every single person who has covered this case in favor of their evidence is the claim that the windowsill dust wasn't disturbed, and that somehow proved that an intruder could not have gone through that window. And this is despite the fact that 2 decades ago, Darin was able to demonstrate how a tall man just like him is easily able to get in and out of that windowsill without disturbing.
Boom. That didn't look very difficult, did it? let's I don't know if I got that much. Let's see, where's it at? Let's do that again. Let's do that again.
Prosecution and every single person who has covered this case in favor of their evidence is the claim that the windowsill dust wasn't disturbed, and that somehow proved that an intruder could not have gone through that window. And this is despite the fact that 2 decades ago, Darin was able to demonstrate how a tall man just like him is easily able to get in and out of that windowsill without disturbing any of the dust. But again,
shocking, isn't it? Shocking. Shocking. He's a big dude. Didn't touch a thing. Didn't touch a thing. Okay, let's see. I have this written down. I don't know what, I didn't write down what this spot is, so let's see what this is. Oh, this is about the knife stuff.
And have left no forensic evidence behind? The answer just might surprise you. On March 2nd, 2008, a horrific crime was committed, ending the lives of 6 innocent people in Memphis, Tennessee. Thankfully, one of the children who was present during the brutal attack survived, but in the days following the attack, law enforcement were completely baffled by the crime scene. Forensic analysts would cover the entirety of the house where the crime took place, and eventually they came to the realization that they were unable to find any evidence, DNA or otherwise, that established the identity of the perpetrator. Law enforcement was bewildered. Despite the brutality and the viciousness of the crime, they had found no forensic evidence. Thankfully, the child who survived would eventually recover and was able to tell law enforcement exactly who had committed the unspeakable acts, and investigators were shocked by who he named as the culprit. It was a man the boy had loved and respected his whole life. He named his uncle Jesse Dotson. But what was more alarming to law enforcement was that Dotson had been in the home for many hours prior to the vicious attack, and yet somehow had not left any forensic evidence that definitively connected him to the crime scene. Despite the lack of material evidence against Dotson, he would not escape justice and eventually received 6 death sentences for his crimes, 1 for each of the lives he stole that night. But what surprised me the most about this story may already be obvious to you now. Somehow, a man who had spent the whole day in that house, who then committed vile and horrendous acts against his own family, had managed to not leave any forensic evidence in his wake. Someone who knew nothing of law enforcement procedures, crime scene analysis, or even how to cover up a crime was the same man who had been in that house the entire day and somehow did not leave a speck of forensic evidence proving that he was there. And this very issue speaks to the ongoing problem that we have discussed on this very channel in the past, the CSI effect, where we often wrongly believe that DNA or other forensic evidence must be present if or when a crime is committed. And yet, as we now know, that is often not the case. So the absence of forensic evidence is not definitive proof of the absence of an intruder. Because if it was, Jesse Dotson might still be free. But
So if it'll happen in one case, it can be the issue in the other case. Trifling fine, not disturbing a thing. Very eye-opening. Very eye-opening. All of it. I have always believed her innocence, and then when I found this one, it was like my friend that sent it to me the other day, and Bitch Talk sent it to me the other day after my other friend had already sent it to me. I was like, "Yep, got that one." So, have y'all seen the Silly String? I know some of us were talking about it a while ago. The Silly String and Memorial video. Do y'all want to watch that part and what he's got on here, or do you want me to just tell you about it? Because I have that, the medical stuff, and something else. Well, let me just tell you this part. The video of the Silly String video that they show that is all over and all of that. Do you know how much the jury only deliberated 4 hours for a death penalty case? That's kind of crazy. The jury watched this video 7 times. 7 times is how often they watched that video in 4 hours. If you don't think that Silly String video is what convicted her, I don't know what to say. The fact that they watched it 7 times in 4 hours is very, very, very telling. And the medical staff, in all of the records, the medical records, and I have a book that has them all. I just haven't unpacked everything because we moved. I say we just moved. We moved a year ago, but I've got to get a shed to put stuff in and get my office. There's a lot. Needs to say it's in a box. I don't know which box or a tote. It's been a fun year. Let's just put it that way. But in that, it has pictures of the medical records. And the nurses are making all of these notes about how inconsolable Darlie is. She is crying. She's upset. She's scared. She's afraid to be alone. She's afraid when somebody would come in, she would react. There's all of these statements of that. The prosecution brings the medical staff to a hotel before their testimony and shows them the crime scene photos, shows them Devon butchered on the floor, shows them Damon's autopsy, shows them all of these incredibly horrible pictures that I had to flip my words around, dyslexia kicking in, and God knows what else they said to them. And they go to court and their story changes. Their stories on the stand were that she was not upset, that she wasn't reacting, that she was whiny. All of these things they say on the stand are not at all what is in their written statements. And Mulder doesn't point that out. The state brings all of these amazing forensic people, which one of them wasn't, he testified to the fibers and he wasn't even a fiber expert. He was a hair analysis expert. So that wasn't even called into question. Hey, Jilby, my big 95-pound German Shepherd is wanting love because Mama's been on the computer too long. Your kitty's bouncing and my dog wants loves. And 95 pounds in your lap is not an easy feat, guys. But she, Lord, I lost my train of thought. I shouldn't do this. I'm trying to think. I think I was talking about the medical staff, but they just, oh no, he didn't ask any questions. He didn't bring any forensic people. He brought Darlie. He puts her on the stand to disprove the forensic experts that the state has brought, who aren't really even the right experts for the case, but that's what was accepted. Joby, go on. And so this was really an effective counsel. It really, really was. And it's frustrating because what do you do? Now she's got the innocent projects on it. And so let me go find the, I'm going to hurry because I've had y'all forever. And I appreciate y'all so much being here. Joining me tonight and supporting me. It means a lot. I thank you so, so much. So let me drop this in the chat. This page here, RJP, they are friends with Darlie. They have so many videos on her story, and they break down everything. So I highly recommend them. But we're going to go. He does one where he does the neighborhood. Let's go. Okay.
Okay, folks, we're live again. And so we're going to redo
I
it.
don't think this is it. Hold on. So he has one where he's just in the neighborhood driving. He's not doing a live that's not like 2 hours long. Let's see. Autopsy. I guess I should have stopped sharing the screen so y'all don't have to scroll all this with me. Maybe it's just the videos. Yeah. Yeah, it's this one. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. This is Rich Prater. I am in Rowlett, Texas. I'm on the corner of United States Route 66.
This is a video of the neighborhood. He drives in front of the house, around the house, down the alley. He points out where the sock was found, and he points out some other theories that could play in with this case.
Dull Rock Road, and I'm turning on Dull Rock Road now. We're going to go take a look at the former Routier neighborhood, and there are a couple things I want to point out. And it is definitely dealing in the world of speculation, but I believe that it's worth taking a look at. In a minute, we're going to be making a right on Linda Vista Drive. Which will lead us down to Eagle Drive. Let's see Linda Vista. And try to bear with me because I got the window down here so I can get good views of things. And it's about 100 degrees right now down here in Dallas. It's very warm and humid. So coming down Linda Vista.
When this video is over, if you would like to come up on panel and discuss your thoughts on this, invitation's open. No peen bombs.
And the stop sign you see up ahead here is Eagle Drive. And there is Eagle Drive. I hope you can see that through this horrible sunlight. Anyway. So we're going to make a right. We're going to go down to 5801. We're going to show you the Routier's house. On our way to it now. This here's where the Blakeneys live. The house is actually up for sale. And this here's the Routier house right here, folks. This is what it looks like now. We're going to go into the back alley. And this is the back alley. You see it 5801. There was the gate and the fenced in area, so you can't really see through the backyard very well. Unfortunately, they replaced this fence after the Routiers left here. And I want to show you where the sock was found. The sock was actually found right here.
I think that's 2 houses down. That's where the sock was. It's almost eerie all these years later.
In front of 5709. But one of the big reasons why I wanted to come into the neighborhood and do a video this evening is because my friend Sarah had pointed something out to me that I was unaware of before. And I want to share it because it may or may not be relevant, but it's definitely worth taking a look at. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and we're going to get out of the alleyway here. All right, so we're coming back to Eagle Drive. And we're going to go back toward the Routier's house, but there's somewhere I'm going to go that is rather an interesting thing to look at. I once said that the neighborhood was very, very hard to get in and out of. Well, it's not as hard as I thought it might be. So here is the corner of Eagle and Linda Vista. We're going to make a right in the Routier's house right over there. And what do we have here that goes down behind Karen Neal's old house? We have an alleyway here, folks. And we're going to go down this alleyway and we're going to see what we run into down here. There's a walkthrough, and I'm gonna back up, and I don't want to make nobody mad. I hope I don't, but I can't help myself here. So there's a walkthrough right there in between these houses, directly from the Routier's house. And look at this back alleyway where from that walkthrough you can go into the alleyway. And look what you run into back here. Right over there is Dull Rock Road. And then there's this huge parking lot back here. That's a church over there. There's a huge parking lot back here. And many ways to actually be able to get out of the neighborhood. You can clearly see you can get out very easily. A car could have been parked in this parking lot for escape. A lot of different various things could have been possibilities. This is back behind the alleyway. It's all open area. That's a bank over there.
Now, granted, in 96, some of this might not have been there. I'm sure this was an open field. Very easily could have been a way to escape. So the one thing I forgot to mention was there was a black car that people reported seeing that didn't belong in the neighborhood, that had been there for a couple of days, kept coming in and like driving slowly, and they'd find it parked. And it was usually always around the Routier house. They were getting ready for a garage sale, and they had seen the car parked, watching them, and made them uneasy. So no one ever investigated the black car. It very easily could have gotten away in that area. Very easily. Let's see what he's talking about here.
Over there. Look at this clearing here. Anybody could have went through here. The escape out of the development is much easier than a lot of people think. And unless you come down here and see it with your own eyes, it's hard to describe. As you can see, this alleyway continues. And we're gonna go down the other side as well. All right, so we're continuing down the alleyway now. Now, Eagle Drive is just if you look at my finger, is just up that way. And look at this, folks. Look at this huge clearing here. On the other side here, I'm not sure what that building is. It looks like condos, but I seriously doubt that that was there in 96. I can just tell by the look of the structure. But if you come down here a little bit more, you're going to see a school here on the right. And again, this isn't a far back end of the development. I mean, there is all kinds of areas to have been able to get out. Now you see this here is going to take you right back to the Routier's house. It's kind of, if you look at the end of my finger, it's kind of up right over there. So look at this alleyway and look at all this area with a possibility of escape. And we're gonna zoom right back up over to Eagle Drive again. And so I really wanted to thank my friend Sarah for this knowledge, because she has had the opportunity to walk this neighborhood. And by walking this neighborhood when she was visiting down here for a festivity, she was the one that discovered these different areas down here in the development where the Routiers lived. And they're obviously real, because here they are. And I wanted to get that on film so I could share that with my viewers and anybody else who has interest in the case. And so here we are again, folks, right back at Eagle Drive again. Okay, that's Highgate and then Eagle. And this here was the neighborhood. Bonnie, you said the Blakeney's house, you got the price on it. How much is it going for? $280,000 for the Blakeney house currently, that's up for sale, which was right next door to the Routiers. Here's the back of the Routiers house right here, folks. This is the house. I've gone past here quite a few times this evening. I don't want people to get mad at me, but that is it. And there's the Blakeney's house that's up.
All right. That was enough of that. So, well, Victor, I suggest maybe watch the rest of what I just played, and you might have a different opinion. Please be respectful. It's what I've asked of everybody here tonight. So in that video, you can see there is ample opportunity for someone to escape, and they didn't bring enough officers to block off the neighborhood to keep anybody from going in and out anyways. So that is rather telling. So if anybody would like to come on panel, give me your thoughts, you're welcome to do so. Appreciate everybody coming tonight. How about, let's look up, I think it was, one equal, really? 01. Yes, wake up. There's a lot of reasonable doubt. A lot. And had it been done properly, proper defense, I think, I don't know, Kerrville would have been challenging to convince. But we close that out. Let's look at the house sold this year. I want to say it was April that it sold. Let me close this. So let me pull this up. Let's look at the house of what it looks like today. Granted, it's going to be a little bit different because it is 30 years later, but this is a beautiful home. This would have been the living room. Kitchen over here to the right. You can see they've added these windows in. Those weren't there at the time of the crime. I think there was a sliding glass door there. Or maybe that was the dining room and the living room's over here. Maybe they've opened that up some. Looks like it has changed quite a bit then. Been a lot of remodel, but this is where a lot of the blood trail was. You know, she come around here to the sink. The vacuum cleaner was knocked over. There was a wine rack here. There was a wine glass broken on the floor that the defense that was fired had a witness, an expert witness that would have testified differently on what the prosecution brought. Mulder didn't bring anything. This goes to upstairs. This is just a beautiful home. I mean, even in the 90s, it would have been an absolutely gorgeous home. Looking at over Eagle Drive. Wait. This is an upstairs living area. Wow. God, that's a gorgeous home. So this house, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2,740 square foot. I want to say, let's see. I think it was Zillow that showed me. One Eagle Drive. So Zillow shows that it sold for $393,300 in April. Oh, somebody being naughty. Was Victor being naughty? Victor, I'm sorry, you're not saying the truth. There is a lot of evidence that proves otherwise. You're welcome to have an opinion, but be nice. Be nice. That's all I'm saying. I'm just going to say that size of house going for that price kind of shocks me because maybe I live... Maybe I need to reevaluate where I live because I'm just saying that house there would have sold for about $700,000 here. Oh, see, I missed it. Sorry, Victor. I don't feel like playing with assholes. I mean, I can, but we're not. We're going to keep it respectful for this case because this case and these children deserve justice, and it hasn't happened. Have a nice night. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on the way out. Don't let the door hit you or the good Lord split you. It is absolutely a gorgeous home, and I can imagine in 96 when they built it, it was just equally as beautiful. It's obvious they've done some updates, but it sold for $393,000. Seriously, that would have gone for 700-something thousand here. I mean, I think the Watts home, I don't remember what the Watts home went for now that I think about it. I was going to say a number, but I don't remember if it was correct. But homes here, we were looking at building a home last year in a kind of a rural but nice area. On the Bayou area, it was about 1,800 square foot, and it was going to be $400,000. Wasn't near that beautiful. Wasn't even close to being that beautiful. I mean, that is a big ass home. So I'm gonna have to look at living in Rowlett and see if Dave's job can transfer. And they don't have to worry about hurricanes. Just saying. So what are y'all thinking? You get more for your money in Texas. In some places. I guess because Rowlett's a suburb. I don't know. It's right next to Dallas, so I'm kind of shocked. I actually expected it to be more, in all honesty. What did he say? Well, he was just wanting to be all kinds of... I'm going back looking at message, just see what Victor had to say. All evidence points to her. How have I been disrespectful? You just don't want to face it. I didn't say you were being disrespectful. We just asked you to remain respectful because you were new coming in to chat. Since I know you're probably still listening, you came in late. I was reiterating we wanted everybody to be respectful with you having a different opinion. We welcome different opinions. Just don't be a dick. Sorry if my language offends anybody. I don't mean for that to be the case. But even with, you know, the behind criminal crime, criminal, whatever that was. What was that channel, Steph? Behind Criminal Minds. His videos, watch the whole video, guys, when you have time. It's 3.5 hours long, so I only played little bits and pieces on it. You're getting sleepy? You work nights. How are you getting sleepy? Like, I never go this long. I'm kind of excited. Yeah, they come in rude, come in hot. Slam the wrench. My wrenches never do wrong. They tend to keep it straight. So, because we don't have issues. So when we do, we pretty much nip it in the bud. I don't know. I have always... I've always known the things about the medication. I've always known the things about the sleep deprivation and the mood swings and understanding why she did the things she did. So it was neat to have a professional outlook say the same things I've been saying for 30 years. And girl, I did that yesterday. And so I had figured TCA would come up. I guess she's still driving. It was neat to hear it put into a perspective that made a whole lot of sense and was a little light bulb, even for me who already believed in her innocence. So hopefully the Innocence Project goes forward. Darlie has said, that she won't talk about it. She can't. Things have to be very hush-hush because that's just how you do the legal process. Things look amazing. They have new evidence they are not sharing. And it's very promising and it looks very good. So my hope and prayers are that something changes. The Texas judicial system is very harsh. It is very hard to get things overturned, and that's why I struggle with the death penalty. Susan Smith is up for parole, isn't she? Didn't I just read that not long ago? And hers was very clear that she murdered her children. So I don't know. I just think that things need to change in the judicial system. It's very sad how Texas works with its death penalty. And it's just frustrating. Yeah, I'm hoping for Rodney Bitch Talks. It is very, I cried a couple months ago when they announced that it was denied. I think they've pushed one more thing through. Rodney stays very positive. He does try to communicate through his brother for his followers. Texas Death Row doesn't even just recently started letting them have tablets. You couldn't even get a tablet to a death row inmate so they could email. They had to write letters. And then during COVID, they weren't even though I do support the death penalty, I'm not coming out saying I don't support the death penalty. I do in certain cases, but I still think that people need to be treated humanely. I don't care if you're a pedo. If you're in prison for the crime that's the worst of the worst, you still need to have some human rights and be treated like a human being. We are not a third world country. If so, we would be cutting hands off for theft. We don't do that. And so we do have to take care of them and properly. That's not how the system works. We can all say they need to sit in a rotted cell and fed rotted food, but that's not humane. And that's not how, if we're going to keep them in prison, then we need to take care of them properly, period. And during COVID, the death row group has their own garden and they do their own food. They do a garden for their vegetables and stuff. And they weren't even able to get a lot of that time in. They weren't able to get their feminine hygiene products. There was their bathing items. There was a lot of things that the prison system wasn't letting them have. It was very sad. And that's just not right. It's just not right. They're still human beings no matter what they've done or haven't done, because a lot of them, there's really a lot. Here's the thing. If there is one person on death row that is innocent and is put to death, that is one person too many. And there's, in that video I was sharing, we've dropped the link in the chat from Behind Criminal Minds, he shares a story in there of a man that the Innocence Project had taken who was put to death. After he was put to death, I don't remember the time frame, they come back with evidence proving he was innocent and cleared his name, but he was already gone. They'd already put him to death. He'd already been executed. So little too late, you know what I mean? And that's where I struggle with the death penalty, and that's why I think a lot of things need to change, and that needs to be higher up. We've got to fight with our senators and congresspeople and get things changed. So I am going to start this series on moms who kill. I do not know that I can do it weekly. I may have to throw something different in between because these cases become a little heavy for me as a mom. I have Darlie listed as a moms who kill because that's what she's sitting in death row for, even though I do not believe, because of the evidence I've seen and the things that are out there, that she is innocent, not guilty. So I struggle even putting her in this, but that's, at some point I'll probably have a different category to put her in. I'm trying to think of what I was going to name it. Anyways, and then I'll put this video in that too. But right now it's going to be in Moms Who Kill because that's what she is on death row for. I do not believe. So for those followers that go around, don't hate on me, I do not believe that she is guilty. I do believe that she is innocent. For those that believe that she is guilty, what I ask is that you take an open mind and look at what I just showed. Go to the Behind Criminal Minds video that we dropped in the chat and watch what he shows. He is a professional that went into this thinking she was guilty, and because of the evidence he found, changed his mind. And that's all I ask. That's all I ask. And if you really can't look at cases open-minded anyways, then you're just being a Debbie Downer. And that's a sad life. That's all I'm going to say to it. But anyways, thank you all for joining me. I so appreciate y'all being here tonight and making this fun for us and joining in the chat and supporting me tonight. I truly, truly appreciate it. I hope y'all come back for the next one. My plan is for Wednesday. Wednesdays are probably the best day for me. Hopefully I can stay to that. But have a great weekend. Hope for that. Love your families, love yourselves, take care. Remember, self-care is important, and stay true to you, and be nice. Be nice. Be nice is important. Life is hard.